2012, Olympia, Washington. Sajudi Paul almost gets it. Quote, most women are taught that if they're not careful, they could become victims of sexual assault. As a result, women in our society live in a perpetual state of fear. This fear is ingrained within us, close quote. Sajudi Paul, in a society that promotes don't get raped, women live in fear. When I read that, I felt encouraged. Maybe this wasn't another hit piece on men. For the past 25 years, feminists have gone to great lengths to label all men as rapists and to scare women. No wonder women live in fear. But then she fell back into sexist victim rhetoric vented by flatulent feminists with a hate-on for men. Quote, in the United States, we deal with rape by educating women on how not to become victims. Women are conditioned to accept certain attitudes, values, and behaviors about themselves. Society enforces an idea that if women behave a certain way, they can avoid being sexually assaulted. Wearing the right clothes or avoiding certain situations teaches them that they can protect themselves from becoming targets, close quote. This is ironic. Her remark might have been true 40 years ago, but today American women are the most liberated and privileged in the world. Certainly, they are more liberated and privileged than 99% of American men. Sajudi Paul continues, quote, victim control does nothing to diminish the threat of rape, nor does it address the real perpetrators, rapists. Rather, it puts the responsibility of rape on women and excuses the perpetrator. It suggests that sexual assault is avoidable if a woman acts in a socially acceptable manner, close quote. With this passage, she is about to engage in a standard feminist ploy, expropriate and twist the argument of the opposition. In the process, she implies that the feminist position that rape is about hate is really a plot of the evil patriarchal male hegemony. Sajudi Paul again, quote, walking alone on an empty street does not cause rape. Rape is caused by perpetrators who are indifferent to the well-being of women. In fact, while it is widely believed that rape is a crime of hate against women, this is not usually the case, close quote. Now, this is interesting because the idea that rape is a crime of hate originated with second-wave feminist Susan Brownmiller. Moreover, Sajudi Paul only goes halfway. She doesn't say, quote, most rapists rape because they're aroused and criminals and indifferent, close quote. Like most feminists, she leaves out that part because in the feminist hate paradigm, all men are criminals and all male sexual arousal is a crime, except when women want it. And even then, it's suspect. She does, however, repeat the lie that for most rapists, rape is about power. Quote, they want something from these women, whether it is sex or the feeling of power over them, and they take it. They do not consider the feelings of their victims at all because they think they are socially inferior, close quote. Feminists define all men by how Susan Brownmiller interpreted what Eldridge Cleaver had to say about rape in his book Soul on Ice. Quote, all our lives we've had the white woman dangled before our eyes like a carrot on a stick before a donkey. Look, but don't touch, close quote. For Cleaver, it was to some extent about power, and feminists generalized from that to define all rape on that basis and to blame all men. Quote, to fight against rape, we need to address the ideology that supports and justifies rape, close quote. Sajudi Paul then launched into the standard feminist diatribe about scolding men and concludes by saying that it's time to stop being afraid. Well, she's right about it being time to stop being afraid. The feminist fearmongers created the rape crisis out of thin air. They are to blame for the pervasive fear women have of men, and it was the feminists who subverted the social conditioning that, for generations, instructed men to protect and respect women's purity. It was still that way when I was a boy. My friends and I were all raised to hope for the chance to be a hero and have the chance to save a damsel in distress. We were taught that rape was bad and that as gentlemen we were expected to defend women, open doors for them, pull out their chair, and that if we observed these and other social rules, then just as women would also observe certain social rules, they would together lead to love, marriage, family, and so on. We got feminism instead. Bill Maher, quote, "Feminine values are now the values of America. Sensitivity is more important than truth. Feelings are more important than facts. Commitment is more important than individuality. Children are more important than people. Safety is more important than fun." Close quote. The false feminist statistics about rape and sexual assault notwithstanding, American women already live in a society where more women have less to fear than in almost any other place and at any other time in history. All a Western woman needs to do to stop living in fear is stop living in fear. Living in fear is a decision, and fearless living is only a decision away. 2015, Olympia, Washington. Starting with the second wave, feminists have made it their goal to pit women and men against one another. This included making women afraid of men. But starting in the 1990s, they expanded their efforts to make men afraid of women. False accusations were key. This harkens back to a time when black men were lynched ostensibly for offending white women. So today, men are afraid, except that it's not the same kind of fear feminism fostered in women. The fear men feel is not visceral. Men are taught from childhood to confront fear and to be brave, so we approach it differently. Where feminists rail against the cautionary tales taught to girls to protect them, as provider protectors, boys are taught to be cautious, yes, but as defenders. So the fear men have of marriage and dating is not the same kind of fear one might feel from, say, falling off a cliff, but the kind that says to walk around a potential threat. It's the kind that says, "Are you nuts? I'm not going to dive off that cliff and hope I land safely. I'm too smart for that." Which is why we have MGTOW. That's all for now. Check out the other videos. Subscribe to the channel. For the Backlash at backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mecklin.